Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm bringing you my favorite video to film, and that is my favorite books of 2024, my favorite books of the year, or of last year, because you're seeing this in 2025. How's the future? How's 2025 treating us so far? Let me know down below in the comments. I hope things are going well in the future. I'm excited to be in 2025, even though I feel like the world is coming to an end, but that's okay. That's all right. We're gonna keep reading our books and keep doing the thing called living, or trying to live. Anyway, this is getting dark really fast. Let's get started with my list of favorite books for the year of 2024. I have a lot of favorites. I have about 13 books, I think. I'm gonna try my best to just kind of like wham bam get to the point on why I love all of these books. And I'm excited to share this list with you guys. Be sure to let me know down below in the comments your favorite books as well from 2024. First off, we're starting with my favorite book of 2024, my favorite book that I read in 2024, and that was A River Enchanted. Y'all knew this was coming. This is definitely my top tier book to come out of 2024. I feel like this book just completely took over my life. I could not stop thinking about it the entirety of the year. And I feel like for me that is very telling that I have solidified a book as a new favorite. So consider this a new favorite of mine. I am making this my entire personality. You will not stop hearing me talk about this book for years to come. So prepare yourselves for that. The story takes place on an island where girls have started to go missing, and it's believed that the spirits of the island have something to do with it. Jack, who is a bard, is summoned back to the island to work alongside his childhood rival Cadence. Together they will call upon the spirits, question them, and try to get to the bottom of this mystery. Nothing I say will be able to encompass the greatness of this book or convey my feelings for this book. It's just on a completely different level. It's not a book that I think a lot of people will love necessarily. I would say specifically if you are somebody who loves beautiful writing, if you love rich atmosphere, if you love sort of a slow paced story, I think you'll really love this book. But if those specific things are things that you do not vibe with, this book might not work for you. I feel like I've read so many books in the past that have had kind of a slower paced style and they never really worked for me. And I think it's something that's really hard to do well, but this book does it so well. It knows how to move the story at its own pace and take its time, not rush through things, and execute it really well. I just think it's so hard to achieve, and this book manages to achieve just that. It has an incredibly immersive writing style. When I was reading this book myself, I really felt like I was sinking into the story, like I was kind of hallucinating. I was not on drugs while reading it, I promise. I do not partake in any kind of drug, but like I literally was having an experience where I was like sinking into the story. It was wild. It was a wild time. This book did something to me that I had not experienced often, but I loved it. I was here for it. We have a few different perspectives throughout the story, which I really appreciated. I feel like it brought in so many different angles and different perspectives that I loved seeing. I especially loved seeing the relationship between Jack and Cadence. While it is sold as sort of a rivals to lovers, I feel like the rivals bit of it is resolved within a few pages. It really does not take a long time for them to like hop and skip over their issues and work things out and kind of work together. And truthfully, I loved that because sometimes I feel like enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers can be drawn out a little bit too much, and I enjoyed kind of just seeing them kind of work through their issues really fast and then work together on this mystery. This book deserves all the stars. I loved it. I need more people to read it and just bask in its glory. So please go read this book and bask in its glory. Obviously, if what I said does not appeal to you, don't go run out and pick it up because you might hate it. But if what I mentioned are things that interest you, please go pick this book up immediately. Next up here, we've got Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. In this book, we follow the story of June, whose author bestie dies of a freak accident. June has been struggling in the author world to make a name for herself, and when she gets the chance to steal her best-selling author bestie's manuscript, she jumps at that chance. She takes the manuscript, slaps her name on it, and things begin to change for her career. But when people start to become suspicious of her book, things take a bit of a turn. That's all I'll say. This book has such an intense, addictive quality to it. It's literally like watching a train wreck. Like you are watching this character make so many bad decisions, so many poor choices, but you just can't look away. You can't stop reading it. I don't know if I would necessarily classify this book as a thriller, but it has these like thrillery thriller-esque elements that come into play. And those elements just like reach out and grab you, and it makes it so hard to put the book down because you just want to know the mystery behind some things, and you also want to know just where our main character is going to end up in this sort of chaos that she is opening up for herself. On top of that though, there is so much depth throughout this book to work your way through. It's certainly a book that I kept thinking about and dissecting as I finished it. And I love when a book does that. Mind you, I love me a silly goofy book as well, but when a book like this hits, it hits. I'm just gonna group these next two together. I've got Happy Place and Beach Read, both by Emily Henry. I have a newfound love for Emily Henry after this year. I read several of her books and I just have found my love for her. I feel like I am very late to the party, but I recognize the fact that like she is a fantastic author, and I'm so glad that I have finally hopped on the bandwagon. I feel like she's one of those authors where she deserves all the hype and success that she has, and I'm excited to see what she comes out with next. The reason that I'm even talking about these books together is because I feel like I have such similar feelings about both of them. I love the character work that Emily Henry showcases in these books. You really get to know these characters, you get to know their struggles. They're not perfect characters, they have flaws, and you see those flaws, you see them make mistakes, and you see them learn from those mistakes and grow from those mistakes. I feel like the character work itself is just on a completely different level. Like the characters just feel so real, and I love that about these books. I also feel like Emily Henry is somebody that can take a trope that has been done over and over again, time and time again, and she can bring some freshness to it. It's not necessarily that she is flipping the trope on its head or anything like that, but I just think that she takes these tropes that are pretty popular and executes them really well. There are times when authors will take a trope and will just kind of be lazy with it, in my opinion, and not really do anything new, or just won't take the time to like flesh it out. And those are things that I can't say about Emily Henry. Like she will take a trope and she will execute it so well. She takes her time with it and fleshes it out, and by the end of it, you're satisfied by the trope's execution because she does it so well. Also, going back to the characters, another thing that I want to mention is character interactions and dialogue. It's so good. It's top tier, honestly. I feel like if you're somebody that is struggling writing dialogue, read yourself some Emily Henry books because the banter is fantastic. It's so good. I feel like the dialogue just never feels boring. It's always interesting what the characters are talking about, and the personalities always shine through in the dialogue as well. So 10 out of 10. Love these books so much, and I'm excited to read more Emily Henry in 2025. Next up is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This is a novella about this girl named Esther who lives in this world where these horrific creatures called manticore live. They basically just come through and wreak havoc. They destroy and kill people, and Esther's own family has been affected by this. Esther herself is working with these creatures called rocks, who basically can be trained to go up against the manticore. I initially gave this book a 4-star rating, but I think I'm gonna like backtrack on that and just give it a 5-star rating because I enjoyed it enough. I will say that I do have some issues with it, but like entertainment level is a 5-star rating, and I just think it overshadows all my criticisms that I have for this book. My main complaint about this novella is that it just feels a little bit disjointed and not really complete. It's sort of strung together by flashes of time, and I think that that just kind of like messes with the overall flow, but I loved it so much. I wish this would be turned into a novella series. I just want more from this world, more from these characters, more from the creatures. I just couldn't get enough when I was reading it. I just wanted more, which could also be seen as another criticism, is that I just wanted more, but I also don't think that that's a bad thing that I wanted more. I think that that means that I loved it so much that I just wanted so much more. It has a lot of really well-written action scenes, which I would just say overall, this is a very well-written novella. I loved seeing all the characters bond with the rocks and grow relationships with the rocks, and then outside of the training, grow relationships to each other. I really loved seeing all of those moments. There's a lot of really interesting characters with complex relationships, and it's just fantastic. Again, I would love to see more from this world. I wish it was a novella series, but I don't think that Fonda Lee has plans for that. Next up here, I've got The Wishing Game. I always describe this book as basically Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but swap out all the candy for books, because that's exactly what it is. In this book, we have this author who at the height of his career disappeared, but now he's back and he's hosting a game for a select few to participate in. The winner will be the only one to receive his next and newest book. While this book wasn't perfect, I do have my criticisms of it. Like specifically, I wanted more from the games that happen in this book, the competitions, and also there's a bit of a romance that blossoms throughout this that I just rolled my eyes at and did not need. Like, this book did not need a romance at all. It had so many other things going for it that the romance just felt so unnecessary to me and so silly. But overlooking those things, this book just warmed my heart, is the best way to put it. Like, it's one of those books where you just can't help but feel happy while reading it. It's one of those books that's just an instant mood booster for me. Like, as I was reading it, I just could not help but feel charmed, enchanted, and happy. It like put me under a spell, basically. That's what I think would happen while I was reading this book. But I loved it so much. I recognize the fact that it's not perfect. It's not going to work for everybody, but it sure did work for me, and I definitely want to read more from this author in the future. Next up here, I've got Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This book takes place in a cafe where people have the opportunity to go back in time and relive the past. But the catch is you have to do it before the coffee gets cold, otherwise you turn into a ghost. This is one that I went into incredibly skeptical. I had this feeling that it was just sort of like drowning in the overhyped pool. And while that certainly may be true for some people who have read this book, it's the kind of book that I just find myself diehard loving. You have all these different characters from different walks of life going through different hardships, and they all have this sort of like string that connects them all, which I really loved seeing. And of course we get the chance to go into the past with some of them, and that was really interesting, seeing how the past has impacted their future, or seeing how going into the past kind of changes their perspective when they come back from going into the past. There are so many interesting character dynamics throughout this book, and ultimately I feel like this book just has a lot of heart. I don't think it's a perfect book. Sometimes it falls into a bit of repetitive writing, and I think that I would have loved to have seen each character spend a little bit more time in the past, because truthfully they don't get that much time to go back into the past. Like, time goes by pretty fast before their coffee is getting cold, and I just wish we would have had more time to spend in the past. But my love for this book sort of overrides any negative thoughts that I have about it. So I love this book. I know that it does kind of fall into the overhyped pool for some people, but it just worked for me. 10 out of 10. I love it. Mwah. Kiss for you. Next on my list is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. In this book, we follow a screenwriter who has hit it big with his career, but now these Hollywood execs are basically insisting that he kill off all his gay characters. When his fictional characters begin popping up around town, the line between fiction and reality begins to be blurred. This is one of the first horror books to be like, hello, Jesse, I think you may or may not love horror. And I've since read a lot of horror books, and I can confirm the fact that I do in fact love horror books. Which truthfully should not come as a surprise, because I love horror movies, I love horror video games, so it only makes sense that I would love horror books. Like, what have I been doing with my life? I don't know what I've been doing. I've been living under a rock, clearly. This one was a wild ride from beginning to end. You have all these really interesting horror elements coming through, but then you have this like really deep message of LGBTQIA+ media being erased, and what that looks like, and the impact on our main character, who is gay and is writing these gay characters, and he really wants to be successful. He wants to maintain this success that he's already achieved. So he's put in this really complex situation where he wants to please these Hollywood execs, but he also doesn't want to erase the heart of his work and the meaning behind it, and what it would even look like to erase those characters. And not only the impact that it has on him, but the impact that it has on people that consume this media. It's fantastic. No notes. I highly recommend it. Next up here, I've got the Mongo Twins. I was hesitant to put this book on my list because I know it's not going to be one that works for everybody, but then I remember the fact that this is my list. This is not everybody else's favorite list. This is Jesse's favorite list from 2024, so I'm putting it on my list. This is basically the Hardy Boys with a bit of a supernatural element. Not like the show Supernatural. I've never watched that show, so I'm not exactly sure if it is similar to that, but like, I mean, like actual supernatural elements begin happening in the story. I feel like something that I really look for in a graphic novel is when the dialogue itself is able to kind of like grab your attention, because I feel like not every graphic novel does that. I feel like a lot of graphic novels just rely on the artwork itself to tell the story, which can work, but I think I really love when a graphic novel does dialogue really well, and that's exactly what happened here. There's so many great character interactions, there's a witty writing style, and just lots of great comedic timing. The banter is a 10 out of 10, the artwork is fantastic, and it has a really intriguing mystery element that comes into play. If you love a cute little trio trying to figure out a mystery, you'll be into this one for sure. Next on my list is Crying in Hmart. This is a memoir, and in it we are following our I almost said our main character. She's not a character, she's a real person, Michelle Zahner, who is a part of the band Japanese Breakfast. And she basically, throughout this book, is retelling her experience with her mother, her complicated relationship with her mother, and then her mother's cancer diagnosis and how that affected their relationship, but also how it affected Michelle's life. This is one of those books that just hits you so hard. I feel like this is one where I can't imagine somebody reading it and not feeling its impact. Like, it's just a very impactful read. It has these moments that feel incredibly sad, but then it has these warm moments that are woven in to kind of like balance things out. You go on this journey with someone figuring out how to cope with this complex relationship, and then you add something else like this cancer diagnosis to the equation, and that just like adds another layer of complications. And I really loved following that journey. And it's one of those things where you kind of forget while you're reading it that it's a real thing that happened, and then it just kind of like hits you in the end when you finish it, and you're like, wow, that really happened to somebody. It's like somebody really went through this, and I think that is what makes it feel so impactful by the end of it. So I love this book. It's really sad, it's really dark, but I do recommend it. If you're somebody that is interested in picking up a memoir, I would recommend checking this one out for sure. Next on my list, I've got the Dallergut Dream Department Store. This one takes place in a literal dream department store where people go when they fall asleep and they purchase dreams. We get a peek into the different sections of the store, and we learn about the different dream makers and the people who come to seek out these different dreams. This book was not at all what I was expecting it to be, and I feel like it is a bit of an unpopular opinion to really love this book, because I feel like I've seen a lot of negative reviews for this book, but I also think it really helps going into this book knowing what you're getting. You're not really getting a story necessarily. Like, this is not a plot-based book. It's sort of just like an exploration of this dream world. So again, you're learning about the different departments, you're learning about the different dream makers, you're learning about the dreamers themselves, and just kind of how this department store works overall. And I think if you're somebody that likes the sound of that, if you're somebody that really likes just kind of a book that's built up on vibes and not necessarily getting fed a really intense story, then you'll enjoy this one. But I feel like if you go into this book expecting a normal story format, you're going to be disappointed. So I think perspective is important in going into this book, but I also understand why so many people might not like this book, but it really worked for me. I really loved it, and I need to pick up the next book in the series immediately. That needs to happen. Next on my list, I've got the Thursday Murder Club. I did own this book physically, but then I gave it to somebody who I know really enjoys mystery books, so I will be picking up another copy of this at some point, but I just wanted to pass it along to somebody else who I knew would probably really love it. This takes place in a retirement home or village, basically, and we have this unlikely group of pals who come together each week to solve different mysteries. I feel like this book honestly kicked off my love for cozy mysteries. It has sort of that like cozy, warm feeling, and I loved that so much. It like pushed me to go and pick up some other cozy mysteries. Mind you, the other ones that I picked up, I did not love nearly as much as I loved this one. I loved the characters in this one specifically. I loved the banter, the dialogue. Oh, it's so fantastic. It has lots of comedic moments, but it doesn't like sacrifice the seriousness of the mysteries in order to be like funny. I think the mysteries are still executed so well, and there's so many great reveals. So I'm excited to continue on with this series at some point, but I might wait until it's complete to really commit to it. Finally, the last book that I'm going to yap about today. I feel like I'm about to lose my voice because of how much I've been talking, but that is the Sunbearer Trials. This basically is about a competition, the Sunbearer Trials. Each decade, the sun's power needs to be replenished, and the winner of the Sunbearer Trials will be the one to replenish the sun, basically. I feel like I always have a hard time describing this book, but it has like major Percy Jackson vibes. That's the best way that I can put it, with a lot of like Mexican mythology woven in, and I am obsessed. When I tell you I'm obsessed, I mean I am obsessed. I need to pick up, oh wait, I did pick up the second book. I picked up the second book. I need to read it. That's what I need to do because it's so fantastic. Like, this book is everything that I want every other YA book to be, honestly. Like, I want really intense action scenes. I want really great complex characters. I want really great complex character relationships. Like, those are all things that I want, and I feel like that's exactly what is showcased throughout this book. It's a 10 out of 10. I love it so much. I need to read the second one immediately. Those were my favorite books to come out of 2024. If you have read any of these books and you want to share your thoughts with me, be sure to do so down below in the comments. Again, let me know down below in the comments some of your favorite books to come out of 2024. I am going to be doing a vlog here at the beginning of 2025 where I read your favorite books from 2024 and also your worst books from 2024. So first off, just let me know your favorite books from 2024, and then in my worst of video, you can share with me your worst books from the year. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon. You'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, the tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo!